What makes a tank movie feel real to the people who actually lived inside steel walls? Is it the noise, the pressure, the silence between moments, or the feeling that there is nowhere to run? Many films claim to show armored warfare, but most only scratch the paint. Halfway through this list, the tone changes and not everyone makes it out with respect intact. Stick with me, because some of these choices may surprise you and others might quietly disappoint. Number 15. Fury, 2014. Fury arrived with a reputation before the first track ever rolled across the screen. Marketed as raw and unfiltered, it promised to put you inside a tank instead of watching one from a distance. For many tankers, that promise mattered. The film follows a worn American crew in the final stretch of World War II, operating under pressure, exhaustion, and constant uncertainty. What Fury gets right is the feeling of confinement. The tank is not a hero's chariot. It is loud, cramped, dirty, and unforgiving. Conversations overlap, orders are shouted, silence feels heavier than action. The crew dynamic feels lived in, not staged. Veterans often point to the way the film treats routine. Long waits, small habits, quiet fear sitting next to dark humor. Behind the scenes, the production leaned heavily on historians and real armored experts. The actors trained inside real vehicles and learned how crews actually move and speak. That effort shows. The tank feels like a shared burden rather than a prop. Not everyone agrees with every choice. Some moments push drama a little too hard. Some decisions feel more cinematic than practical. But even critics admit the film respects the weight of armored service. Fury does not make tanks feel powerful. It makes them feel dangerous to everyone inside them. That honesty earns it a place on this list. Number 14. The Beast of War, 1988. This is one of those films that quietly earns respect instead of demanding it. Released with a little fanfare, The Beast of War tells the story of a foreign tank crew lost in harsh terrain, cut off from support, and slowly unraveling from the inside. The tank becomes both shelter and trap. What tankers respect most here is restraint. The film does not rush. It lets tension grow naturally. Long stretches pass with nothing but engine noise and glances between crew members. Every movement feels deliberate because mistakes carry weight. The tank itself is treated like a living thing. It groans, it resists, it demands care. When it fails, panic follows. Veterans often point out how accurate the internal behavior feels. Arguments flare, authority cracks, fear shows up in small ways rather than speeches. The story also avoids easy answers. There are no clear heroes, just people trying to survive choices that keep getting worse. That moral weight matters to those who served. Armored warfare is not clean. It is confusion layered on steel. The Beast of War never became a mainstream hit, but among those who understand armored service, it gained a quiet reputation. It understands that tanks do not just move across land, they trap emotions inside them. That insight keeps this film relevant decades later. Number 13. Lebanon, 2009. Lebanon is not a traditional war film. It is a pressure chamber. Almost the entire story unfolds from inside a single tank during a modern conflict. You rarely see the outside world clearly. You glimpse it through optics, glass, and fear. This approach divides audiences, but tankers often respect it deeply. The film understands that limited vision is part of armored life. You do not see everything. You react with incomplete information. That uncertainty shapes every decision. The crew in Lebanon is inexperienced, nervous, and overwhelmed. That is not played for drama. It is presented as reality. Sweat, shaking hands, and hesitation take center stage. The tank is loud, hot, and emotionally suffocating. The director's own background as a former armored crew member shows in the details. Commands feel awkward. Timing feels off. Nothing flows smoothly. Veterans often say that is exactly the point. Some viewers find the film uncomfortable. It refuses to provide relief. There is no wide perspective, no cinematic escape. But for those who lived inside armored vehicles, that discomfort feels familiar. Lebanon is not about action. It is about pressure and responsibility pressing in from every side. That honesty earns it respect. Number 12. Sahara, 1943. Sahara comes from a different era, but its influence still echoes. Released during World War II, it follows a tank crew stranded in the desert with limited resources and fading hope. The tank becomes both lifeline and liability. What makes Sahara endure is its focus on endurance rather than spectacle. The heat matters. Thirst matters. Fatigue shapes behavior. The tank is not invincible. It is fragile, dependent on people who are already stretched thin. Veterans often admire how the film shows cooperation across differences. Rank matters less than survival. The crew adapts because they must. That flexibility feels real. Despite its age, the mechanical portrayal holds up surprisingly well. Real vehicles were used. Real environments tested the cast and crew. That physical strain translates on screen. Sahara does not rush toward glory. It lingers on waiting and uncertainty. For tankers, that waiting is familiar. Long stretches of nothing punctuated by moments of crisis. The film reminds viewers that armored warfare has always been about people managing limits. Technology helps, but it never removes fear. That timeless truth keeps Sahara relevant and respected. Number 11. White Tiger, 2012. White Tiger is the most unusual entry on this part of the list. It blends realism with symbolism, telling the story of a mysterious enemy tank that feels more like an idea than a machine. For some viewers, that abstraction is confusing. For tankers, it often resonates. The film captures something psychological, the sense that certain machines take on a presence beyond logic. Stories spread. Fear grows. The enemy becomes larger than reality. The battles are quiet, tense, and deliberate. There is no rush. The focus stays on anticipation and obsession. Veterans often say the film understands how armored conflict lingers in the mind long after engines stop. Technically, the film respects machinery. Movements feel heavy. Timing feels earned. Nothing looks effortless. White Tiger is not meant to explain everything. It reflects how memory works for those who served. Some experiences never resolve neatly. Some fears never fully leave. That willingness to explore the mental side of armored service makes White Tiger divisive but respected. It does not try to please everyone. It tries to be honest about what stays behind after steel meets fire. Number 10. The Battle of Neretva, 1969. This film does not feel staged. It feels unleashed. The Battle of Neretva was built on scale that modern films rarely attempt. Hundreds of real vehicles, thousands of real people. Nothing feels light or decorative. When armor moves here, it changes the ground beneath it. Tankers respect this film because it understands mass. Tanks do not act alone. They advance as part of something bigger, louder, messier. The camera does not chase heroes. It watches systems collide. Confusion spreads. Orders struggle to keep up with reality. What stands out most is weight. Bridges shake. Roads collapse. Vehicles stall and fail. Nothing resets after a mistake. That sense of consequence matters deeply to people who lived it. The production itself became legendary. Real structures were destroyed for authenticity. Crews worked in dangerous conditions. The chaos on screen mirrors the chaos behind the camera. This film does not simplify conflict. It shows how armored movement creates pressure not just on enemies, but on everyone nearby. Tankers often say it feels closer to memory than cinema. Loud, unclear, overwhelming. That is why it still commands respect decades later. Number 9. A Midnight Clear, 1992. This is a quiet film, and that is exactly why tankers respect it. A Midnight Clear focuses on the moments before armored contact. The waiting, the listening, the tension that builds without action. Tanks here are distant, but their presence dominates everything. You hear them before you see them. You feel their approach like weather moving in. That anticipation feels real to anyone who has waited under threat. The film understands fear as silence. Characters speak softly. Movements slow down. Decisions stretch longer than expected. Nothing feels rushed. Veterans often praise how the environment matters. Snow limits movement. Cold drains energy. Visibility changes behavior. Tanks are not just machines here. They are forces shaping every choice. The film avoids grand speeches. It focuses on small human reactions, glances, hesitation, regret. That restraint gives it power. Tankers say this film understands something many others miss. Armored warfare is not constant motion. It is waiting for something heavy to arrive, and sometimes that waiting is the hardest part. Number 8. Kelly's Heroes, 1970. At first glance, this one looks like it should not work. Humor, rebellion, and oddball characters wrapped around armored vehicles. Yet tankers keep coming back to it. Kelly's Heroes understands camaraderie. Crews joke because they have to. Humor becomes a tool for survival. That balance between danger and absurdity feels familiar to many who served. The tanks themselves are treated with care. Movements feel deliberate. Crews communicate constantly. Nothing happens without coordination. What tankers respect most is honesty. The film does not pretend everyone believes in slogans. It shows people trying to make sense of chaos in their own way. Behind the scenes, real vehicles were used, and it shows. Weight matters. Sound matters. Mistakes feel risky. This film reminds viewers that armored crews are not symbols. They are people with personalities, doubts, and strange coping habits. That human focus earns Kelly's Heroes its lasting respect. Number 7. Cross of Iron, 1977. Cross of Iron is harsh by design. It strips away romance and leaves frustration behind. Set on the Eastern Front, it shows armored units breaking down under pressure, weather, and poor leadership. Tankers respect this film because it shows decay. Equipment fails, morale drops, authority clashes with survival, nothing feels clean. The armored sequences are chaotic and grounded. Vehicles move through mud and snow with effort. Crews struggle to keep pace. There is no sense of control. The film also respects exhaustion. Characters look worn. Decisions feel heavy. That slow collapse mirrors real experiences. Veterans often point to how the film treats hierarchy. Rank does not guarantee competence. Respect must be earned under pressure. Cross of Iron does not offer comfort. It offers recognition. For many tankers, that honesty matters more than polish. Number 6. Patton, 1970. Patton is not about tanks alone. It is about obsession with movement. The film captures how armored power becomes a mindset rather than just a tool. The scale is staggering. Real vehicles fill the screen. Maneuvers feel organized, loud, and relentless. Tankers admire how the film shows momentum as strategy. The sound design matters. Engines roar, tracks grind, orders echo. It feels overwhelming by intention. What elevates the film is its focus on command pressure. Decisions ripple outward. Mistakes cost time and lives. That responsibility weighs heavily. Patton does not paint leadership as simple. It shows brilliance mixed with stubbornness. Confidence paired with risk. Tankers respect this film because it understands that armored warfare is not just about machines. It is about people driven to keep moving forward even when the ground itself resists. Number 5. The Tanks Are Coming, 1951. Before realism became a selling point, this film quietly laid the groundwork. The Tanks Are Coming was made when memories were still fresh, when many people involved had lived the experience they were portraying. That alone gives it weight. Tankers respect this film for its sincerity. It does not chase spectacle. It explains routine. Training matters. Communication matters. Mistakes are corrected, not ignored. The tank feels like a workplace, not a stage. The crew dynamics feel instructional without being stiff. You see how trust builds slowly, how confidence comes from repetition, not bravado. Veterans often say this film understands that armored service is learned under pressure, not born in glory. Real vehicles were used, and it shows. Movements are careful. Crews treat the machine with respect because they know it can fail them at any moment. The film may feel restrained compared to modern entries, but that restraint is exactly why it lasts. It reflects a time when accuracy mattered more than drama. For tankers, that honesty still speaks clearly. Number 4. Stalingrad, 1993. Stalingrad is exhausting on purpose. It pulls you into cold ruin and despair without offering relief. Tanks move through broken spaces like tired animals, struggling against terrain and time. Tankers respect this film because it understands attrition. Nothing improves. Conditions worsen. Machines degrade. People follow. That slow collapse feels real. The armored sequences are not flashy. They are heavy and awkward. Vehicles struggle to maneuver. Crews operate under constant strain. No moment feels safe. Veterans often point out how the film treats hope. It fades gradually. There is no single breaking point, just erosion. The environment plays a major role. Snow, rubble, and distance shape every action. Tanks are powerful but never dominant. That balance matters. Stalingrad does not glorify endurance. It shows its cost. For tankers, that truth feels earned. Number 3. T-34 2018. This film blends old-school reverence with modern energy. T-34 celebrates machinery while still respecting its limits. The tank here is iconic, but never magical. Tankers appreciate the attention to detail. The sounds are right. The movement feels heavy. The crew coordination looks practiced. Nothing happens by accident. Some moments lean into visual style, but beneath that polish is genuine care. The film understands that tanks inspire confidence but demand discipline. Veterans often note how the crew treats the machine as a shared responsibility. Everyone has a role. Everyone depends on timing. The film also captures momentum. Once movement starts, stopping becomes dangerous. That pressure feels authentic. T-34 earns respect by honoring both the machine and the people inside it. It balances excitement with grounding, which is harder than it looks. Number 2. Das Boot, 1981. There are no tanks here, yet tankers swear by this film. Das Boot understands armored psychology better than most armored films ever made. The reason is confinement, discipline, dependence on machinery. The feeling that steel protects you and traps you at the same time. Tankers recognize themselves in the routines, the tension, the silence, the way small failures become huge threats, the way pressure changes behavior. The film refuses shortcuts. Time stretches. Waiting becomes unbearable. Leadership is tested constantly. Veterans respect how the environment dominates every decision. There is no escape, only adaptation. Das Boot proves that armored service is not defined by location. It is defined by pressure. That truth resonates deeply. Number 1. The Bridge at Remagen, 1969. At the top sits a film that feels less like entertainment and more like memory. The Bridge at Remagen captures armored movement as chaos, urgency, and exhaustion all at once. Tankers respect this film because nothing feels staged. Tanks surge forward under pressure. Decisions feel rushed because they are. Confusion dominates every frame. The production itself mirrored the story. Real disruptions, real danger. That instability bleeds into the final result. The film understands that armored warfare is about timing. Miss it, and everything collapses. Hit it, and the cost is still heavy. There is no celebration here, only momentum and consequence. For tankers, this film feels closest to truth. Loud, unclear, relentless. That is why it stands at number 1. 5. Tank warfare movies. Tankers don't respect. Number 5. Battle of the Bulge, 1965. This film looks impressive at first, but tankers lose trust quickly. The machines feel wrong, the terrain feels wrong, and the tactics feel imagined. Tanks move too freely across open ground, ignoring weather, limits, and coordination. Veterans who knew the real conditions noticed immediately. The battle was fought in brutal cold and confusion, yet the film shows wide sunny fields and clean formations. Even the vehicles themselves break immersion, standing in for something they clearly are not. The result feels more like a parade than pressure. Tankers say scale alone does not equal truth. When details fail, respect fades. This film taught a hard lesson. Big scenes mean nothing if the steel feels hollow. Number 4. Battleship, 2012. Tankers lose trust with this film almost immediately. Movement has no weight. Vehicles slide, turn, and stop like they are floating instead of grinding against terrain. Coordination feels optional. Crews act without structure and consequences rarely stick. Everything looks loud but feels empty. For people who understand armored service, the lack of discipline is impossible to ignore. Machines behave like action toys rather than demanding systems that punish mistakes. The film chooses spectacle over logic, noise over pressure. Tankers often say it feels built for excitement, not understanding. When steel stops feeling heavy, nothing else matters. That is where this film loses respect and never recovers. Number 3, Death Race, 2008. This was never meant to be realistic, and tankers know that. Still, its use of armored vehicles pushes disbelief too far. Weight does not matter. Physics vanish. Vehicles flip, crash, and recover as if nothing happened. For people who know what armored steel actually does, the spectacle becomes noise. Tanks here feel like toys instead of responsibility. There is no coordination, no discipline, no sense of consequence. Everything resets instantly. Tankers often laugh at it, but not with affection. The film treats armored machines as fantasy props, not environments people survive inside. That difference matters. When steel loses weight, respect disappears with it. Number 2, The Monuments Men, 2014. This film means well, but tankers feel disconnected from it. Armored vehicles appear without purpose, drifting through scenes like background furniture. Characters move too casually around them. The sense of danger is softened, almost absent. Tanks feel clean, quiet, and strangely harmless. Veterans notice how the environment never pushes back. There is no tension in movement, no urgency in positioning. Everything feels staged for comfort. Tankers often say the film treats war like a museum tour instead of lived experience. The message is noble, but the execution feels distant. When armor loses pressure, it loses meaning. That is why this one rarely earns respect among crews. Number 1, Battle for Anzio, 1968. This film disappoints tankers the most because it promises seriousness and delivers confusion. Tanks appear without clear purpose. Movement lacks urgency. Scenes drift instead of build. For a story centered on a critical campaign, the armored elements feel strangely passive. Veterans often say the film misunderstands how pressure shapes decisions. Tanks should drive momentum. Here they feel like scenery. Editing and pacing drain energy from moments that should feel tense. Nothing seems to carry consequence. Over time, the film became an example of what happens when armor is added without understanding. Tankers respect accuracy, effort, and weight. This film misses all three, and that is why it sits at the bottom. Steel never lies. Either a film understands pressure, weight, and patience, or it doesn't. Tankers know within minutes which side it falls on. Some stories earn respect by feeling heavy and honest. Others collapse under fantasy. Now it's your turn. Which film got it right and which lost you fast? Share your take, subscribe for more, and keep questioning what realism really looks like.